Hi, good evening, and welcome to the daily market summary for today. Today is Tuesday, August 12th, 2025. A bit of housekeeping before I get into it. As always, thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing. Thank you for every comment, suggestion, and all that. I don't take it for granted because honestly, you don't owe me. So for you to do so, it means that you enjoy the content and you're a big supporter of the channel. So thank you for doing so. And just in case you happen to just have stumbled or just newly joined the channel, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Um, as always, please note that this is not financial or trading advice. Whatever you decide to do, you need to come up with your own research, and so that way your own investment decisions are solely yours. Now, starting out with how today went down, all share index rose by 0.12%. Depending on how you view things, the final index movement I have for yesterday was 0.09% upwards. Initial reports were 0.13. So, just in case you're wondering, if at any point it doesn't happen too often, but if at any point in time there's a slight change in the index or the final figures differ, then I would notify in the next video. Now the index measures the average performance of stocks on the exchange. Some stocks will do better than the index, some stocks will do worse than the index. Now, how did today fare? And do let me know if you prefer this bird's eye view of the numbers, or if you prefer each page one by one. So let me know in the comment section. And also let me know if the green I use for the positively appreciating stocks looks clear. And from my view, it doesn't look too sharp. I guess I'll play with a darker tint. How did today fare in terms of gainers? Slightly different from yesterday. You have fewer insurance companies dominating. I mean, what I have here is one, two, three, four, five. So of the top 10, five of them were insurance companies. But a common denominator is that a lot of them are small cap stocks. Ella Lakes, I believe, should be trading at a 52-week high. That's the stock I have the numbers of heart. Every other stock, I guess they are trading within range. So insurance stocks are still very much within play. Now, in terms of losers, I picked the top five losers. And in case you're wondering why do top 10 losers and then have top five losers, it's simply because on the loser side, I didn't have stocks doing that dropped by 10%. So top five losers, you have Academy, May and Baker, Wema Bank, Livestock Feeds, and UACN. In terms of most actively traded stocks by volume, insurance stocks and still very much in play. Lasaco with 107.2 million shares traded. Japol from the mining space with 106.8 million traded. Sterling from the financial services space, you might call it a bank holding company, 97.8 million shares traded, which is rather huge. Sterling typically does not trade large volumes like that. ICO still trading large volumes at 64.9 million. Access Corporation, I must say, has been a regular in terms of volume traded, with 61 million shares traded. Now, to most actively traded stocks by value, back to the big cap names: GTCO, Dangote Cement, Zenith Bank, Nigerian Breweries, and Access Corporation are the most actively traded stocks by value. Now back to MTN Nigeria, and I must say thank you for your patience. I had promised a couple of weeks ago I was going to do this, and so I decided let me just use this video to do this. Hopefully, this video doesn't exceed 15 minutes. I've done 4 minutes and 29 or 4 minutes and 30 seconds. So I tried to keep this under 15 minutes, so I don't have to shoot a separate video for LinkedIn. These are H1 25 numbers. H1 meaning the first 6 months of the company's financial year. For MTN Nigeria, that runs from January to June. Now, I feel H1 numbers, and that's why I'm not going to dwell too long on this page. H1 numbers don't show the actual movement because last year was a rough year due to the FX devaluation, lingering effects, which meant foreign currency losses and all that. So I don't think that H1 numbers are what you should use to compare last year. I think Q1 and Q2 will be a better reflection of current realities for this firm. But anyways, you can see clearly 2.3 trillion naira in revenue, up 54.4%. For profit, 414 billion in profits. Last year was a loss, so clearly you can't compare. For me, what first thing I look at in the firm on the NGX is margins. So margins here are what 17.45%. So for every 100 naira revenue, about 17.4 naira was profit. And then you have your earnings per share or profit per share of 19 naira and 78 kobo. So usually, if it wasn't an extraordinary poor year last year, all I would simply do would be to analyze, trying to figure out how these numbers are going to shape out for the rest of the year. But I rather use Q1 and Q2. Q1 meaning the first 3 months of 2025, Q2 the second 3 months of 2025 or the second quarter. So Q1 January, February, March, Q2 April, May, June. And so clearly you can see the numbers. And what do I have here? Um, a trillion in revenue in first quarter, that went up by 24.75% to 1.3 trillion. Profits is up over 110% quarter on quarter. So, yeah, if compare previous quarter and current quarter. So, Q1, 133.6 billion in profit, Q2, 281 billion in profit, up 110%. If you compare one on top of the other. Now, beyond profit, and yes, profit is key, but clearly you can work out the profit margins, 12% profit margins. In fact, you may argue that look, profit margins accelerated to 21% in the second quarter, but you can assume just to be on the safe side that look, profit margins for the year will be maybe 15%. And that takes me to a deeper dive into the revenue split. And this is important because if you're trying to figure out what this stock should be valued at or where it should be trading at, it's a function of revenue and profit. Now, clearly you can see there's been a huge jump in data revenue. Data revenue has been a stronger driver, and it's a common trend across telco space. Clearly, you see there's been a huge driver in data revenue, and that you can attribute to the tariff hike that took place sometime, will I say, if I recall correctly, in late Q1. Now, this slide is important because with this slide, you can estimate total revenue. And why do I say so? You have about 700 billion in revenue from data in Q2. If you assume that Q3 and Q4 you have a steady run rate, that tells you that H2 you're going to have what? 1.4 trillion as revenue. And if you take H1, so H2 data revenue is 1.4 trillion. If you take H1 data revenue, that's about 1.2 trillion. So it means that MTN will end FY25 with about 2.6 trillion in data revenue. So let's come to voice revenue. Again, you can do the same thing. Assume you're going to have 800 billion H2 if Q2 and Q3 and Q4 continue the same pattern. So add up all the numbers together and you probably will have about a 1.5 trillion as voice revenue for the year, and then you add up the numbers, and you would have a what, a 2.5 or so a trillion as a data revenue. So 2.5 plus 1.5, I think that gives you 4 trillion or so. But if my math is correct, and that takes me back, we can assume that look, we're going to have about a 2.6 plus 1.3. I'm going to have about 5 trillion in revenue for the year, and you can split it somewhere between say 3 trillion as data revenue, and then 2 point something trillion as voice revenue and the likes, or about that 1.5 trillion as voice revenue and maybe 3.5, 3.6 as data revenue. So clearly you can quite see the run rate. And if I recall correctly, I think MTN has a market cap Let me see if I can check those figures for today. I think MTN has a market cap of about 10 trillion or so. Let's see. Um, Times like this, I wish I was using my laptop, and I think very soon I'm going to go into doing that. So that way, it's just easier to navigate the numbers. So let's see, MTN market cap. I know it's over 10 trillion, but I just want to be exactly sure. So it's a 9.6 trillion market cap company. So the question I would ask you, and that takes me to my next page, or maybe I should draw back on this, is for a company that is going to end the year very likely with 5 trillion, between 4.5 to 5 trillion in revenue, where should this stock be trading at? Because if the market cap is 9.6 and you're going to end the year with somewhere between 4.5 to 5 trillion in revenue, clearly that tells you that MTN, if you're just looking at it by market cap, is undervalued. Or to break it down in simple terms, this is a firm that is going to end the year with somewhere between 43 to 45 naira in profit. Stock is trading at 460 naira. So if you had the company that is making 45 naira in profit every year, and you assume that it's kind of going to remain constant, worst case scenario, for say the next 5 6 years, how much would you pay for that firm? In my view, I think that the minimum you'd pay for this firm would somewhere be between 450 to 500, because if you're getting 45 naira every year, it means that in 10 years time you very likely would have gotten your cost price back, and very likely you can model the numbers. It's most likely the stock will grow revenues 10-15% bare minimum every year. And then that takes me to my medium term target price. I think whichever way you work it out, and clearly you can see TP means target price, KGAR means cumulative average growth rate in earnings or profit. If we assume scenario one, second column, that look, I think this firm is going to grow profits by 10% every year. So FY25 earnings per share, profit per share 43 naira, and that grows by 10% in the next couple of years. And I think the stock should trade at 12 times earnings. It means that whichever way you look at it, stock should be trading somewhere between maybe 500 and 620 naira. Now, if I assume that this stock is going to should trade at 15 times earnings, it means that in a couple of years, if this earnings growth is comes to pass, then this stock should trade somewhere between 645 to 780. And so that's why if you look at the article I wrote, I said, look, I think this stock is going to be a 1,000 naira stock in under 3 to 5 years, because um, we are just looking at voice and data, which are doing well. But there's also the PSB. And you might argue, look, it's probably going to take them maybe 2 3 4 years to start to earn some profit on that unit. And that's not a problem. But if slash when they do so, you need to factor it. And then you have the other units that you can factor as well. So whichever way you look at it, I think at bare minimum, you can say that this is clearly a 500 to 600 naira stock in a year or two. So you do the math from where it is. Stock is trading at 460. 600 minus 460, and whatever it gives you, then you can work out your numbers. As always, please note, this is not financial advice. Please do your own research. And before you go, because I know people tend to drop off after getting the gist, please follow the Greenticker Tales podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube Music. You can also find content on greentickertales.com. I put up an article on MTN Nigeria, so if you prefer to read, you can find the article there as well. So thank you for listening so far. Have yourselves a lovely day ahead.